My name is Charles Norman Shay. I was born in Bristol, Connecticut on the 27th of June, 1924. My parents were living in Connecticut at that particular time. My home is in the state of Maine on the Indian reservation at Old Town, Maine. My mother was an advocate for Indian rights, and she was interested in sending her children to the white schools, but I was the first one. My mother arranged through the state government for me to attend the grade schools at Old Town, Maine. I had two brothers. The oldest brother and my youngest brother, they went to the Navy, U.S. Navy. My brother that was older than I was, next to me, he went to the U.S. Air Force, and I waited to be drafted because I did not want to volunteer. At the time, we had no voting rights, and we had to serve the government during the war. I was transferred from Fort Devens. That was just my entry unit. Well, I joined the military service and I was sworn in. And I was sent to Camp Pickett, Virginia for my basic training. And once I was finished with my basic training, I was told that I was be going to a medical school, and I thought, well, this is a pretty good deal. I was going into an operation room. I thought, well, this is a good deal for me because I'll probably be working in a hospital someplace in the States. But this was not true. We boarded the Queen Elizabeth, which had been converted into a troop transport ship. It could travel across the ocean in 5 or 6 days, and did not need an escort because it was very fast, and the German submarines were not able to target it because it was moving too fast. And we landed in England, and I stayed in a replacement depot for a few days, and then I was eventually transferred to the unit that I would be serving with during the war, and that was the 1st Infantry Division. We had training, daily training on a beach that looked very similar to Omaha beaches. It was sandy, and the tide came in and went out here, and one day the Germans were able to penetrate the protection of this area, and they came with motorized speedboats, and of course they had small artillery on there and so forth, and they did much damage, and they sank, I don't know, a couple of ships, troop ships, and they killed about 400 or 500 GIs that went into the water, and most of them drowned because they could not swim or they were unable to. General Eisenhower was in charge of the entire military operation at Omaha Beach on D-Day. And he was going to schedule the landing for the 5th of June. But because suddenly very inclement weather came up with rain, clouds, very high waves, and he postponed it for the 6th of June. The weather was not much better on the 6th of June. It was almost as bad. And at about 3 o'clock in the morning on the 6th of June, we got an order over the intercom system on the ship to prepare to board our landing craft. And the landing craft were pulling up on the side of the troop ship, and they were going from anywhere from 5 to 7 feet up and down because of the waves. And this was very dangerous because they slung rope ladders over the sides of the ship. The men had to climb down the ladders, and they had to jump from the rope ladder into the landing craft when it was at its highest point, because if it was low, the distance was too great, and there was a very big chance that they could break their legs. We were told that we would be about 5 or 6 landing craft in one group that would leave the area of the troop transport ships and carry them to the beaches. We had to leave the area of around the troop transport carrier and go to an area and go in a circle until we had 5 or 6 ships, and then we were told to proceed to the beach. We finally made it to the beach, and we were told to proceed to the beach itself and unload our troops on the beach. But before that happened, we got marooned. The Germans had placed metal barriers in the low tide area, and when the tide came in, you could not see them because they were underwater. And we became marooned on one of these underwater barriers that had been established when the tide was low and put in place. And when the tide came in, you did not see them anymore because they were covered with water. When I left the landing craft and jumped into the water, I jumped in and I was in water up to my chest, but I was able to touch the bottom, the sand bottom of the area, and I was able to make my way to the beach. I selected a point there, and I began treating the wounded and the men that were coming in and needed help. I saw that there were many men that had been wounded that were laying in the low tide area on the beaches, but the water was coming in very fast, and many of these men were destined to drown if nobody came to their help. So I dropped what I was doing, and I returned to the water to assist these men. Men being wounded, dying, needing help, and there was no way of keeping track of how many men I treated. It was continuous work. I had lost so many men killed and wounded that we were not longer an effective combat unit. So we had to go into a castle. I think it was a castle someplace in the area of the beach, and we stayed. Of course, we pitched tents and stayed in the fields to recover a little bit and to get replacements. And while we were there, they had a ceremony for awarding medals to many men that had done heroic deeds during the invasion. And I was one of them because I received the Silver Star and I was awarded. It had been very many years since I had I never visited Omaha Beach until many, many years after the war. And when I first came back, of course, I was full of sorrow. And one of the first things that I did was to hold a Native American ceremony for all of the men that had died on that beach on that particular day, on the 6th of June, 1944. Every time I came back after that, I always held a Native American ceremony for these people, and it was always at 6:30 in the morning. That was the time that we landed on Omaha Beach on the 6th of June. And I always was on the beach at 6:30 once a year, every time I came back to visit Normandy. I like living here very much, and the people are very dedicated to the American troops that came here and liberated them and sacrificed their lives. And we visit very often. We visit the cemetery, which contains the bodies of over 9,000, close to 10,000 men that were killed on Omaha Beach. And this is where my friend Edward Mirosevic, who found his grave there, is also buried. And each year when I come now, since I've been coming back, I visit his grave, say a prayer for him, and well, it's part of my ceremony when I come here.